On November 26, 2010, 13-year-old Yara Gambirasio left her home in the peaceful town of Brembate di Sopra, Lombardy, Italy, for a short walk to the local sports center. Yara, a talented young gymnast, was known for her dedication and hard work. On this particular evening, Yara had planned to deliver a stereo to her coach, a task that seemed routine for her. She said goodbye to her parents and promised to return shortly, but she never came back. Hours passed, and by the evening, her parents grew increasingly worried. With no word from Yara, her mother contacted the sports center, where she was told Yara had left at 6:30 p.m. This raised immediate concern. It was unlike Yara to go missing without informing anyone. By 7 p.m., her parents called the police. What began as a concerned parents' inquiry soon escalated into a full-scale search. The community rallied to assist, but as the hours stretched into the night, the situation grew more desperate. Local authorities, volunteers, and the family searched tirelessly, but there was no trace of Yara. The quiet town of Brembate di Sopra, usually filled with a sense of safety, now harbored an unsettling mystery. In the days following Yara's disappearance, the entire region remained on high alert, hoping for her safe return. However, despite every effort, Yara's whereabouts remained unknown, marking the beginning of a tragic and complex investigation. Months later, the search would tragically end, but not with the happy reunion everyone hoped for. The discovery of her body on February 26, 2011, would ignite a journey for justice that would span years and shake the community to its core. Yara Gambirasio was born on May 21, 1997, in Brembate di Sopra, a quiet town in Lombardy, Italy, known for its close-knit community and peaceful atmosphere. Despite her parents' separation, Yara's family remained the central pillar of her life. She was deeply loved by her family and respected by her peers. Yara's life was full of promise, marked by her commitment to academics and athletics. She was an exceptional student, with a keen interest in both her studies and extracurricular activities. Her love for gymnastics was a defining part of her personality, and she was dedicated to honing her skills at the local sports center. Yara's work ethic and determination were evident in her performance, earning her admiration from both her coaches and friends. Beyond her athletic talents, Yara was known for her kind and compassionate nature. She often helped her family with household chores and was a loving sister to her siblings. At just 13 years old, Yara had already demonstrated remarkable maturity. She had dreams of continuing her education and pursuing her passion for sports. She was a well-rounded and responsible young girl, driven by an inner determination to succeed and make those around her proud. In her small town, Yara was seen as a role model, someone with immense potential and a bright future ahead. Her community was proud of her, and her family's bond was strong. Tragically, this bright future was suddenly shattered on that fateful night when Yara left her home, never to return. On the afternoon of November 26, 2010, Yara left her home in Brembate di Sopra at around 5:15 p.m. She was dressed casually in a light blue blouse, jeans, and sneakers, ready to head to the local sports center. Her mission was simple: deliver a stereo to her coach, a task that seemed like just another part of her daily routine. She told her family that she would be back in about an hour, but this would be the last time they saw her. By 7 p.m., with Yara still not home, her parents began to grow concerned. This was out of character for her. She was always punctual and dependable. Yara's mother called the sports center, only to be told that Yara had left the center at approximately 6:30 p.m., as planned. At this point, a sense of unease set in. Her parents quickly reported her missing to the police, but their initial reactions were met with skepticism. Authorities suggested that she might have run away or gone to a friend's house, a common assumption in cases of missing teenagers. However, Yara's family knew better. Something was terribly wrong. A wave of worry spread through the community as friends, neighbors, and volunteers joined in the search. They combed the streets, alleys, and nearby areas, but there was no sign of Yara. As the hours passed into the night, hope began to wane. The small town that once seemed so safe and secure now seemed filled with an unsettling uncertainty. The police expanded the search, utilizing canine units and conducting interviews, but still, no clues surfaced. What initially seemed like an ordinary errand for a young girl quickly turned into an agonizing mystery, leaving Yara's family in a state of distress, uncertain whether their daughter was safe or in danger. After 3 long months of searching, the investigation into Yara Gambirasio's disappearance took a heartbreaking turn. On February 26, 2011, a man flying a model airplane near Cignolo di Isola, a town just 10 kilometers from Brembate di Sopra, noticed something unusual in a secluded field. At first glance, it appeared to be a pile of rags, but upon closer inspection, he discovered the lifeless body of Yara Gambirasio, partially covered and hidden in the underbrush. The area where Yara's body was found had not been part of the initial search. A quiet industrial zone on the outskirts of the town, the location seemed remote, making it difficult for search teams to reach. Yara's body was severely decomposed, but forensic experts were able to confirm her identity through her clothing, which matched what she was wearing the day she disappeared. The discovery was devastating, but it also marked a significant milestone in the investigation. Upon examination, it was clear that Yara had suffered physical violence. The forensic team found multiple stab wounds on her body, although none of the injuries appeared to be directly fatal. The cause of death was determined to be a combination of blunt force trauma and hypothermia. She had been left in the cold to die after the brutal violence. There were no signs of a crime of an intimate nature, but traces of DNA on her clothing raised the possibility of identifying the perpetrator. For the community and Yara's family, the news of the discovery brought relief in knowing she had been found, but the circumstances of her death were difficult to comprehend. With the case now taking a darker turn, the question surrounding who was responsible for this act of cruelty weighed heavily on everyone involved. The investigation into Yara Gambirasio's murder quickly became a complex and challenging case for law enforcement. As the police worked tirelessly to follow up on leads, they faced numerous setbacks. Early attempts to identify a suspect yielded no results, and the public began to grow frustrated with the slow progress. In the first weeks after Yara's body was discovered, the police considered a variety of possible suspects. The first person to be arrested was Mohamed Fikri, a Moroccan man who was in the area at the time of Yara's disappearance. However, the arrest came as a result of a misinterpreted phone conversation. This led to a public uproar, but the case against Fikri was quickly dismissed when it was realized that the mistranslation had led investigators down the wrong path. With no solid leads, investigators began to turn their attention to the forensic evidence gathered from Yara's body. The DNA traces found on her clothing became crucial, and investigators spent months analyzing them. The breakthrough came in 2014, when police turned to DNA profiling. They compared the DNA from the crime scene to samples from thousands of potential suspects. After an exhaustive search, in June 2014, the breakthrough finally occurred. A match was found. The DNA was linked to Massimo Bossetti, a local construction worker, with no prior criminal history. Bossetti's DNA had been identified through an extensive process of elimination, involving over 22,000 DNA profiles. His DNA was found to match the sample collected from Yara's body, confirming his involvement in the crime. The news of this discovery was a turning point in the investigation, as it pointed to a man with no apparent connection to the crime, a man who would eventually become the central figure in one of Italy's most high-profile trials. In June 2014, Massimo Bossetti was arrested after DNA evidence linked him to the murder of 13-year-old Yara Gambirasio. Bossetti, a 44-year-old construction worker from the nearby town of Mapello, had no prior criminal record, making his arrest particularly shocking to many. The DNA evidence was clear, but Bossetti maintained his innocence throughout the investigation and trial. He claimed that the DNA match was either the result of contamination or mistake, but he could not offer a satisfactory explanation for why his DNA was found on Yara's clothing. The DNA evidence had been collected from Yara's body and compared to over 22,000 DNA samples as part of the investigation. When Bossetti's DNA was identified as a match, it seemed to confirm his involvement in the crime. However, Bossetti's defense team suggested that the DNA might have been transferred in an unintended way, possibly through cross-contamination, during the forensic analysis. They argued that the evidence was not conclusive enough to warrant a conviction. Despite his claims of innocence, Bossetti was charged with the murder of Yara Gambirasio, and the case against him seemed to be strong. In addition to the DNA evidence, investigators also discovered that Bossetti had been in the area around the time of Yara's disappearance. The prosecution argued that the DNA evidence was of high quality and that the match to Bossetti was irrefutable. They also presented circumstantial evidence that further implicated him in the crime. Bossetti's arrest was met with mixed reactions. Some believed that the DNA evidence was definitive proof of his guilt, while others questioned the methods used to gather and analyze the forensic evidence. The case became a point of public debate, with many questioning whether the legal system was being too reliant on forensic science, especially given the doubts raised by Bossetti's defense team. In July 2016, after years of legal proceedings, Bossetti was convicted of the murder of Yara Gambirasio and sentenced to life imprisonment. His appeal was rejected, and the conviction was upheld in 2017. However, the case left lingering doubts in the public's mind, with many continuing to question the reliability of the evidence and whether Bossetti was truly guilty. The trial of Massimo Bossetti became a high-profile case in Italy, drawing widespread attention. Despite the DNA evidence linking him to the crime, Bossetti's defense team vehemently denied his involvement, claiming the evidence was contaminated. They argued that DNA could have been transferred unintentionally or that there was a possibility of cross-contamination. Throughout the trial, the defense raised concerns about the forensic process, questioning the validity of the DNA sample and suggesting that it could have been an error. On the other hand, the prosecution presented the DNA evidence as the cornerstone of their case, emphasizing its quality and accuracy. They argued that the match was conclusive and that Bossetti's presence at the crime scene was undeniable. Public opinion was divided. Some felt that the evidence against Bossetti was overwhelming and that the legal system had delivered justice. Others, however, continued to believe in his innocence, citing the unresolved questions surrounding the DNA evidence. Despite the defense's arguments, the court found Bossetti guilty of Yara's murder in July 2016, sentencing him to life in prison. His appeal was rejected in 2017, and the conviction was upheld. The case sparked intense debates in Italy about the role of forensic science in criminal justice. Many questioned whether the evidence was strong enough to convict Bossetti, and whether the reliance on DNA technology had overlooked other possible explanations. The murder of Yara Gambirasio left an indelible mark on Italy, not only because of its brutality, but also because of the questions it raised about forensic science. While the conviction of Massimo Bossetti brought some closure to Yara's family, it also exposed the flaws in the investigative process. Despite the eventual identification of the killer, doubts about the DNA evidence continued to linger, with some questioning whether the conviction was based on the right facts. For Yara's family, the years of uncertainty and grief were finally alleviated, but the emotional scars remained. The case also sparked a wider debate about the role of forensic evidence in criminal trials. The reliance on DNA technology, while revolutionary, was still met with some skepticism. Critics argued that forensic science must be further refined to ensure accuracy and prevent miscarriages of justice. Yara's legacy became a powerful reminder of the need for continuous advancements in forensic methods to bring justice to victims. The murder of Yara Gambirasio, though resolved with Massimo Bossetti's conviction, remains a symbol of the challenges within forensic science and the justice system, highlighting the importance of improvements in investigative methods and transparency. For more updates and insights into high-profile cases like this, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned.